Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the ALEC States and Nation Policy Summit 2020 virtual meeting. Please welcome ALEC National Chairman, Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives, Philip Gunn.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the 2020 ALEC States and Nations Policy Summit. We're thrilled to have you join us today. I'm joining you from ALEC headquarters here in Washington, D.C., and I know many of you are joining us from all around the country. We are thrilled with the number of people who are with us today. I know this has been an adjustment for all of us. 2020 has been a great challenge, from dealing with the pandemic to economic fallout to the elections. We've had a year that's brought a lot of challenges to all of us. And with that in mind, I think I speak for everyone that we're looking forward to 2021. And this conference has been designed with that in mind. We hope today to bring, over the next few days, this conference is designed to get you ready for 2021. We're going to move forward with topics pertaining to dealing with the pandemic, to vaccine distribution, to getting kids back in school, to your state budgets and economic recovery. And we think these are all topics that are relevant for the time that we're living in. We all know, as much attention has been given to the federal government, we all know that the action is in the states. We've long believed that the states is where the critical decisions are made, and it's the backbone of this country. And all of you who are joining us today are in positions to do something about that. We're all going to be put in positions come 2021 to make decisions that move this country forward, to move our states forward, and help us recover from that. And we all want to talk about those things that we hold dear here at ALEC: limited government, free enterprise, individual liberty. And this conference this weekend, or this week, is designed to help you do just that. So we're thrilled to have you here with us today. I want to welcome you. And at this time, I want to turn it over to our CEO, Lisa Nelson.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker Gunn, and you're exactly right. The action is in the states. Throughout 2020, we participated in a federally supported, state-managed, and locally executed crisis response. It is how federalism is supposed to work, and it gave us many pathways and perspectives on how to manage and lead. It also gave us the opportunity to measure the response of an executive branch behavior. In October, ALEC released a brand new resource, the Laffer-ALEC Report on Economic Freedom, which ranks America's 50 governors based on policy performance and result, as well as executive leadership before and after the start of COVID and the health crisis. This great resource was made possible by the Empower Dallas Foundation, thanks to the generosity of Mr. James Dondero, and developed by ALEC and our friends at Laffer & Associates. Today, we have an amazing opportunity to hear from two of the report authors. Former Reagan economist and member of our ALEC Board of Scholars, Dr. Arthur B. Laffer, and later on from Donna Arduin, who has served as budget director for the states of New York, Florida, California, Illinois, Michigan, Alaska, and now even Montana with the election of Greg Gianforte. These two know firsthand what good and bad executive leadership looks like. Please welcome to the screen my personal friend and hero, Dr. Arthur B. Laffer.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's really a pleasure. By the way, you're my heroine. You're the role model of the planet, and what you have done with ALEC just can't be matched anywhere. And thank you for having me here, and thank you for all that you do. I want to just say that this governor's report has been a real pleasure for me to be involved with ALEC, with Donna Arduin, with Steve Moore, with Jonathan Williams. I mean, people do need an objective set of criteria to evaluate their politicians, the policies, their states. And this is the first attempt we've done to rank the governors of the United States. And we had a lot of information to do that. And it came today, which on my introduction is to the winner of the race. And he stands on the shoulders of greats, Rick Perry. But the winner is Greg Abbott, who is the 5-star governor of the state of Texas, for all that he has done to make Texas the most attractive state in the nation, where people from everywhere are moving to Texas to take advantage of Governor Abbott's policies. And the state of Texas is just a magnet for economic activity. And, this governor is just the greatest ever, and he's our #1 governor. So Greg Abbott, may I introduce you and thank you for all that you do for the states.
Thank you so much, Art. I want to thank you. I want to thank Alec. I want to say hi to Lisa. We had Lisa over the governor's mansion a couple of weeks ago, and what a fabulous team you have. Art is very interesting because I know one thing that you have said before, which is a very valid principle, and that is one of the beauties of the United States of America is that people and businesses get to vote with their feet. And what that means is they're not locked into any particular state. They get to look at different state governments and choose to operate and locate their businesses in the states that provide the best opportunity. And one of the amazing things is that during the course of COVID this year, it has not stopped the migration and the reinvention of businesses moving from other states to the Lone Star State. Get this. This month, yesterday, it was announced that the headquarters for Hewlett-Packard Enterprises is moving to Houston, Texas. Last month, it was announced that the Fortune 500 real estate firm CBRE was moving its headquarters to Dallas, Texas. Next month will be the grand opening of the new headquarters of Charles Schwab that's moving to Dallas, Texas. It's been widely acclaimed that earlier this summer, there was the announcement of Tesla opening up a gigafactory as well as additional expansions in the state of Texas. And candidly, the list just goes on and on and on. And in ordinary times, businesses have been looking at the burden of taxes, the burden of regulations. They've been looking at the business climate. But during the course of the pandemic, they've seen an acceleration of their need to flee other states. And they're having to flee these other states in part because of lockdowns, in part because they have realized now that they no longer need to spend the skyrocketing price for square footage in downtown San Francisco or downtown Manhattan or wherever the case may be. And it makes states like Texas even more attractive. And one thing that we do in the state of Texas, which is far different than what we see in the states that we're competing with, and that is that Texas views businesses as partners. We partner with them, we come alongside them, we support them, we find out what their needs are, and then we work to address their needs. And that's exactly why Texas continues to be the #1 state in the United States for business relocations. And there is an award that's given out every single year for the state that ranks #1 in these business relocations, and it's called the Governor's Cup. Every year that I've been governor, Texas has received the Governor's Cup as being the #1 state in America for business relocations. I think that 2020, the pandemic year, will prove that once again, Texas will be in that situation. But what I know is this, and that is we currently have in the pipeline 196 business deals that we may be able to close next year. So as good as this year has been, next year may be better. You may have seen the news, and I talked to Lisa about this when she was at the governor's mansion, but Friday a week ago, I had leaders from the NASDAQ as well as other trading organizations that work in conjunction with the NASDAQ, and they are having to consider fleeing New Jersey because of a financial transactions tax that the state of New Jersey wants to impose upon them. In Texas, we don't have a financial transactions tax. In fact, we're about to go into a legislative session where I will be seeking a law to ban a financial transactions tax. And that coincides with what we did last session in the state of Texas that shows you our mentality. Last session, we passed a constitutional ban on an income tax. What that means is income tax is now unconstitutional in the state of Texas, and it would require a constitutional amendment to try to impose one. Those are the types of steps that we take, whether it be reducing taxes, such as limiting income taxes, such as the reduction in property taxes that we passed last session, such as working to ban a financial transactions tax, or our constant work to cut regulations to make the environment more hospitable for businesses to do business in ways that they can profit. You know, a different approach that we have is you see these other states, they basically try to leech off of the businesses in their state, try to suck every last tax dollar out of them that they possibly can, thinking that those businesses would never leave their state. Now, what they're saying very prolifically, especially during times of the pandemic, is more and more businesses are fleeing these other states because of the catastrophic principles and policies these other states have adopted. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll pass it back to you, and that is that in addition to taxes, in addition to regulations, in addition to good budgeting policies, there has been another issue that has cropped up very prolifically this year that is an issue that is driving businesses out of some states. And it's the issue of public safety. You've seen whether it be in New York or Chicago or Seattle or Portland or Los Angeles or San Francisco and other cities across the country, this attitude about defunding the police or being hostile to police. These are the people that we need to keep our communities safe. People who work in these businesses, large and small, in states across the country, they have men and women going into the office every day. They need to be safe going into work, going home from work. They need to know that their family is going to be safe at home. And they simply don't feel that level of safety in these states that are defunding the police. And we've come out strong in the state of Texas, making very clear we support our police. We will not tolerate any defunding of police, and we will have safe communities for these businesses as well as the families that work in them to make sure that they can live, work, and play in a safe and prosperous state.
You know, hearing your comments, if I can be serious for a second and not joke around, hearing your comments only reinforces the view that we had that you're the single best governor in the state of the United States. You are amazing, and I'm just very proud that we have you as our first #1 governor in the United States. And would you be willing to take a question or two from some of the people in the audience? Great. Lisa, can I turn that back over to you for questions and running that operation?
Absolutely. I would say the first question that I think our audience would love to hear is, how have you approached? You say you have 197 companies in the pipeline, which is absolutely amazing. And just hearing from your story a couple of weeks ago when we were in the governor's mansion talking about NASDAQ and Hewlett-Packard and some of these others, Fidelity and Schwab. What has been your secret sauce with respect to tax reform and any other policies, specific policies that you can highlight that have brought these companies to Texas?
So I would say it's a two-pronged approach. One is the policies that you're talking about, and I must be very adamant that a great amount of credit goes to my partners in the Texas legislature, whether it be the lieutenant governor, the speaker, or the members of the House and Senate, especially the chairs of Finance and Appropriations in the House and Senate. They are very conservative in their budgeting approaches. And one thing that aids Texas in this process is the fact that we set tight budgets. We learn to live within our means. And that means that we do not need to raise taxes, but also because we support our businesses, because we make clear to these businesses that we are silent partners with them, because we know this fact, Lisa, and that is when businesses relocate to Texas and when they succeed, that helps Texas succeed. One of our primary sources of revenue for our state budget is sales taxes. Every business that comes in is going to be adding to that sales tax base. Their employees who work there, when they go shopping for groceries or sporting goods or whatever the case may be, there will be sales taxes paid, and that helps the bottom line revenue for the state of Texas. And so by just attracting more people to the state of Texas is increasing the revenue that we need to keep a sound budget. But because of budgeting principles that we have put in place, we have pre-dedicated a portion of the sales tax revenue as well as the oil and gas severance tax revenue to things like transportation infrastructure, to schools, to other programs, to make sure that we are funding our priorities to begin with, so that it limits the flexibility that we have to use money for other types of issues. And so it's a matter of setting priorities, funding those priorities, and learning to live within our means. And we have a great legislature that helps us achieve that goal.
Well, you make a great point on working with the legislators in the states. And I think that throughout this last year, we've seen different legislators and legislatures working with their governors and sometimes not working with their governors. So I want to give you hats off in terms of your ability to work with your legislators in Austin, and congratulate you on that bipartisan approach to bringing new businesses to Texas. I'm going to bring in Jonathan Williams here and see if he's got a follow-up question to your comments about this amazing display of new companies coming to Texas.
Well, thank you so much, Governor Abbott. Just an incredible record that you've had. And of course, for years with Dr. Laffer and Steve Moore, we've outlined Texas' success in rich states, poor states, always being among the most competitive states. And you talked about that important partnership between legislative branch and executive branch. And, even the best states like yours have to stay ahead. There's, the entire eyes of the country are on you for states and governors trying to catch you. What's the ideas in terms of continuing ways to make Texas even more competitive as we go forward?
Well, you make a good point, and it's an essential point, and that is steel sharpens steel. And that means that the more that we engage in competition among the states, that will make the states better. And the good news is we have friendly competition with Tennessee, with Florida, with other states where we are all competing for these same jobs, these same relocations, and that makes all of us better. It makes all of us pass policies and principles that are more business friendly, that are more taxpayer friendly. But we must always keep an eye on the future. And so we have a two-pronged vision. So we have a legislative session every other year. And that may be part of what makes Texas better. And that is we only meet for 140 days every 2 years. We're looking to change that so we meet for only 2 days every 140 years. And that way we can completely reduce the involvement of government in our lives. But until that comes, as we get ready for our next session, we're looking at two different tracks. One is what we must accomplish for the next 2 years. And there's certain things such as passing a budget, funding our schools, and things like that. But the other part is envisioning what we want to accomplish for the next 20 years. And that means passing laws that will prevent the ability of whoever the leaders are 20 years from now from coming in and disrupting the Texas model. It will mean things like trying to pass additional constitutional bans on some types of taxes. It means passing laws that will both fully fund policing, but also make it impossible for cities to defund policing, so that we will prevent the type of outlaw situation that you see in some of these cities like Portland and Seattle, et cetera. It means making sure that we are going to pass laws that will make it permanent for decades into the future, the conservative principles that have gotten Texas to the position that it's in now.
Those results are absolutely phenomenal. And I want to pivot back to Dr. Laffer and see if he's got any other questions. And if not, we might go to Donna Arduin, who's also been a part of this. But Dr. Laffer, do you have any final comments for the greatest governor in America right now?
We made the right choice, Lisa. Just listen to him. And how can you not just be completely compelled? When I left California, I knew I had to leave California, and my family all did with me. And half the family moved to Texas and half of it moved to Tennessee. We both made great decisions, but I'm not sure that Texas wasn't the better decision. And my kids did a better job than I did in selecting the destination. But I love it here in Tennessee. But Lisa, go ahead, if you will. And thank you very much, Governor.
Well, thank you so much, Governor Abbott. I'm going to just put this back up on the screen one more time. It's the Laffer-ALEC rankings for economic freedom of the 50 governors. And congratulations to Governor Abbott of Texas for his #1 ranking. We will be talking with governors all throughout this week. I think we have Governor Sununu tomorrow and other governors slated throughout the programs this week, and we'll be discussing their rankings and their steps. But congratulations again to Governor Abbott for your #1 ranking.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to ALEC. I look forward to continuing to work with you all as we do our part to keep Texas and to keep America the greatest country in the history of the world.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to continue this conversation for a few minutes because we've got Donna Arduin, who is, I think, right now in Montana, possibly Michigan, who is one of the authors that has worked with Jonathan Williams. Donna, are you available and on the screen? There she is. I introduced you as a partner with Dr. Laffer and part of our team here for this report. And I thought it might be kind of interesting for people to hear from you on some of the success you've had and the things that you really drive home with sitting governors and or incoming governors. I know you're currently working with Governor Gianforte as he puts together his proposed budget and his work for Montana. But could you speak to that for a few minutes?
Yeah, terrific and great presentations. I've worked with a number of governors over decades, and Arthur and I have worked with governors over decades. And every time I talk to a new governor, I say, first of all, fiscal policies matter. And that's one of the reasons we wrote this report, because state fiscal policies matter. And as Arthur was saying, yes, you know, we often see that good governors follow good governors, and a state can be graded very well because of the policies of the past, but it's also very important what the governor's doing. So in states like Texas, where, you know, you just heard Governor Abbott say he came into a state that was doing, you know, extremely well, but you heard all of the things that he did. So we're never surprised that we, you know, see continuous improvement from those states. But we've also seen governors who can change their economic destinies in a very short period of time. The other thing that I tell them is, you know, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We just need to do what Texas is doing or Florida's doing. You know, we've got a dozen amazing states and some governors who popped into the, you know, the top 10, top 12 that, you know, come from states that weren't at the top of the list before. So, you know, just look at what other states are doing. ALEC has modeled legislation. And, you know, understand when we say fiscal policies matter, a lot of people think all taxes are the same. They're not all the same. You heard Governor Abbott talk about that. Every dollar, you know, no matter how well intentioned, spent by government is not a dollar that's being spent by the private sector. And private sector creates economic activity, government does not. Welfare dependency, you know, no matter how well intentioned, it drags down a state's economy. So we looked at all of those things, you know, economic, education freedom, and so forth. And so all of these things matter. They matter. Arthur and I can tell you, no matter what state you're in, it's not just about geography. It's not just about weather. They matter despite what, or sometimes despite what the federal government is doing. So you can control your own economic destinies. And I know we have a lot of legislators here that work with their governors on these things. And, you know, together, you're gonna create the economy that, you know, perhaps the federal government can't do and come out of this COVID better and stronger if we just follow the same policies that work all the time, over time, and no matter what state you're in.
That's fantastic information, Donna. Thank you so much. Jonathan, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, you know, and I think it's really important to highlight a couple things there. I really appreciated those remarks from my good friend Donna. But, you know, President Trump deserves a lot of credit, I believe, as part of this very strange but consequential year for governors, in that he empowered states and allowed states to make the decisions that they felt were right for them. And of course, we can all agree or disagree on the individual actions of governors, but I think it was essential for the principle of federalism, one of the three guiding ALEC principles, that the federal government didn't come in and federalize with some sort of national one-size-fits-all policy, but allowed the states to innovate, be these laboratories of democracy like we all believe in. And that's such an important point to kind of backstop of how important this governor's report that was this year to measure the actions of the governors. You heard from one of the best with Governor Abbott today. Also, I mean, we're seeing actions across the states now keying off of trying to emulate the success of Texas and Florida and Tennessee. We even have had just in the last week or so, we had Speaker Philip Gunn, who you heard from a moment ago, our ALEC National Chairman. He's been talking about eliminating the income tax in Mississippi for several years. Governor Tate Reeves came out and said, I support eliminating the income tax. I want to be more like Texas and Tennessee and Florida and see the job creation and see Mississippi continue to turn things around and gain new population. And so we are seeing some amazing movements. And now, of course, you're hearing from states like Louisiana and states all across the Southeast now looking at those decisions, the announcements from Speaker Gunn and the governor to say, how can we keep up with the neighborhood, so to speak? How can we continue to become more competitive? So this is all super exciting, and it's just another great way to measure your state and measure your chief executive for how free market they are when it comes to policy.
I love it. I love the friendly competition between states. So we have a button that says, what is your state ranking, that we wear at our in-person meetings, and to provoke some of that competition among states and to get those governors and legislators to start to compete is absolutely wonderful. Donna, do you want to jump in?
Well, I talked about competing at the top and how quickly, a governor and the legislature can make a difference. Since I'm actually in Michigan right now, I may as well also talk about how quickly a governor can take a state down. Again, fiscal policies matter because our Michigan governor has moved into the bottom 10. And Michigan was once, under Governor Engler and other governors, a powerhouse state. I will also say, though, that this isn't a partisan report. We've got Governor Polis of Colorado in our top 10, and he's terrific, and he's doing a wonderful job. Arthur, you might want to comment on that. But it's not partisan, but it just happens to tend to be that states that have had conservative fiscal policies are continuously improving. Brag about Governor Abbott one more time. He has the lowest spending per, personal income, lowest government spending compared to the size of the state's economy in the country, and yet he continues to cut spending and cut taxes.
Yeah, let me just say, if I can, Polis has done a very good job in Colorado. What's really fun about all of this is we have been doing, Jonathan, we've been doing for years and years, rich states, poor states, which really ranks the states prospectively and historically. And we've done that. Now we're starting to come back and put on responsibility on the people who actually make the decisions to create the states for prosperity. And if you look at the United States, it's a perfectly wonderful laboratory for doing these types of experiments. I mean, the Constitution prohibits any types of impediments of goods and services and or people from going across, allowing them to go across state lines. So there are no barriers states can put up to block people from moving if they want to. And what we have done here with the governors is giving the first round to the governors. And obviously Greg Abbott came out #1 in all the state. When you look at our rich states, poor states, I think Utah has been our #1 for quite a while, but just a very, very well-run state. But what we plan to do is to make this report every year, make it more and more refined and make it better and better to allow people to adjudicate and to see what's happening in other states and in this state and make decisions as to where they want to be and who they want to vote for, which is what an informed electorate is really the best electorate to have. And Lisa, I'll pass it back to you.
Absolutely. I think that the vision for this report with Jim Dondera was to do exactly that. He talked about kind of the Zaggett's guide which is the restaurant guide, and the 5 stars would be the restaurant you wanted to go to most. And that handbook that we've put together, I think is exactly what we've tried to do here. We will refine it and get better and better with the years. And what our hope is that the governors will get better and better over the years too. So they'll use this as a guidepost on rich states, poor states. We have lots of legislators who call us and say, how do I get our state to move up in that ranking? And our hope is that the governor's offices, and I think we've already heard from 3 or 4 since we put this out, how do the governors themselves manage their executive office to ensure that they're putting forward the right policies?
Well, and it's really important to know this isn't just theory. I mean, let's look at even the early results. I mean, we put it in the report. We'll check it out at the ALEC.org website. But look at the unemployment rates by states. I mean, for those of you that follow the economic data, like many of you as ALEC members that are really into the policy, Governor Ricketts, one of our top scoring governors in America, unemployment rate in Nebraska right now hovers around 3%. Which is unimaginable that we would be talking about this in the 9 months into a pandemic at this point. And you look at Governor Cuomo, one of the worst rated governors in the report in New York, nearly double-digit unemployment rate with some of the most severe lockdown measures. And the governors that are getting it right when it comes to policy and reopening people's livelihoods, they're the governors that states are once again taking the lead.
Can I just make one comment, Lisa?
Yes,
Can
absolutely.
I just, Tennessee is going to be the first state since Alaska to actually get rid of its income tax in its entirety on January 1st of this coming year. Go ahead. Sorry. I just thought I could put a little shout out to Tennessee. We're getting rid of the hall tax, which is phased out and is phased out in its entirety in 2021.
And I think your neighbors in the South and Mississippi are looking at that and watching to see what's happening in Tennessee and wondering, why can't we bring in the kind of people that Tennessee is? And so that's why you see Governor Tate Reeves and the Speaker of the House and everybody in the Mississippi legislature looking at ways that they can attract some of that financial and economic boom to the state of Mississippi. That's fantastic on Tennessee. Well, thank you very much. I want to bring this discussion to a close and say what a great discussion it has been. You will hear more and more from us on the Laffer report, this ranking. Get used to seeing this graphic because we will be pushing it out. We've already sent this out to every governor's office and their policy staff, as well as the legislators, so they can encourage that activity from the executive branch. It's so hopeful to hear from a state leader like Governor Abbott. I think that his message and the message that he's sending to all businesses across America is just amazing. And to watch what's happening in Texas is going to be fun. Thank you so much.